everybody. Vasu, Vaddiparty, Casey, Freelove here. Today is Thursday, May 6th, 2021. Charlie O on assignment. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. How's everybody doing out there? Lots of baseball to talk about, some NBA as we wind down the regular season. Happy birthday, happy 90th to Willie Mays today. Had a nice conversation with his personal interview subject, Marty Lurie, yesterday. If you missed that on Stables Media, we're powered by Stables Media. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and all the YouTube channels. If you missed any of the live broadcasts, you can download on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcast. Casey, it feels like 2 years. I missed you, man. How are you?
Well, hanging in there, life comes at you day by day, but good to be back with you and pretty excited that we're winding down the NBA season and it's not going the way that really anybody could have predicted before we got going. And of course, a happy one to Willie Mays. That's very cool. What a guy. I mean, I hope I look that good if I make it to 90 years young, because that guy looks like he could go another 20 or 30 maybe, Vasu. And you've met him in person many times, I'm sure. I still have an autographed ball from when I was like 10 years old. My dad bought me for my birthday from Willie Mays, one of my prized possessions there. What a guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Willie Mays' eyesight kind of bad, not at the ballpark very much, but he and my interview subject yesterday, Marty Lurie, if you missed it, you can download it on Stables Media or a conversation with anywhere on my Facebook page as well, too. He has had the privilege of getting to know him for the last 15 years, been the personal interviewer. Willie Mays only will talk to him. What a lucky guy that is. He grew up watching Willie Mays in New York and Brooklyn, and to know him and to be his friend. I've only met him once. I shook his hand for 5 seconds. I mean, Willie Mays is Elvis. I didn't see him play. You obviously didn't see him play. You're younger than me, but the highlights and the reverence. And you know what? In sports, Casey, there's very few people that can do this in sports, but Willie Mays will make 60-year-old men cry when he's in front of them. It is absolutely the truth. You know what I mean when I say that. It's just total reference. So speaking of baseball, and in light of all the Hall of Famers we lost last year, it's good to see Willie Mays. We'll celebrate 90, and we'll continue to go on. And hopefully, Marty will have some interviews and stuff, and we'll be able to tag along with that and be able to put that up here as well too. So thanks to everybody again on Facebook and YouTube. We're here Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. Let's get right to the big news here. We'll give you the baseball update in a second, but huge news if you're in baseball. Let me find the baseball notes. But Albert Pujols, the Anaheim Angels, the LA Angels of Anaheim, of Orange County, of California, of whatever they are, of Disneyland, but nowhere near Los Angeles, was DFA'd by the Anaheim Angels today, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Albert Pujols, a first ballot Hall of Famer. The numbers are totally staggering for St. Louis. I did a breakdown of it, but he's 41 years old. This is his 22nd year in the big league, 21st year in the big league. Spent his first 11 with the Cardinals. This is his 10th season. And I find it very funny, not for him, obviously, but he knows his skills have deteriorated a little bit, and he doesn't run at all like he used to, and his fielding's not great. And if you're not hitting and you're Albert Pujols, then you're really not much of any good. But the Angels have a terrible bullpen. Mike Trout's only been to the playoffs 1 year in his 10 years there. They don't play well with that offense that they have. The starting pitching's been crappy. I mean, Casey jokes about Andrew Heaney being the ace of the staff. Very, very favorable pitcher to bet against on our wagering show here. But the fact is that Albert Pujols is the one that gets DFA'd when the Angels have so many other problems of not making it to the playoffs, except for the one time that Mike Trout made it in 2015. That they made it in 2015. Pujols was on that team. Your thoughts on Albert Pujols here as we get the show going, Casey?
Well, I mean, I think even at the time when he was elite and signed with them 10 years ago, you knew that the deal was too long. I think at the time it was the longest deal in baseball history, at least at that point. And you knew that he was going to deteriorate over time. And that's kind of what we've seen. Also, anybody that's had any foot issues, which I've dealt with myself, that you get involved with that plantar fasciitis, man, and it can really kind of derail you as far as your ability to plant. It affects everything, your swing, your hips, all of it, just because you can't really get a great grip. He's batting 198 with a 250 on base percentage this year. That's not good. The other thing is Jared Walsh and Ohtani are both capable to fill in that role. So I guess, they kept him around because they wanted him to be there when he got to number 5 on the all-time home run list. He's certainly revered and a guy that's going to be remembered as, one of the great St. Louis Cardinals, if we want to go back to when he was winning World Series. And he was good in Anaheim, but I think you kind of spoke to the issue there. Now, I know they've shuffled a little bit with their general manager and their approach, but Vasu, is there any reason why this team hasn't gone out and tried to attract or buy a frontline pitcher? What guy wouldn't want to live next to Disneyland in LA, be a superstar, Orange County, if you want to put it that way. It's really baffling to me that they're sitting in the basement at 13 and 19. They were decent the first couple of weeks of the year, but they're a perennial basement dweller. And I've got one of my best friends is a huge Angels fan. He's been with them since we were kids. And every year we have the same conversation. Why doesn't this team go out and try and buy themselves some pitching? Clearly, offense isn't the problem. You've got the best player in baseball still, as he is year in and year out. Ohtani's been a nice surprise, but hey, you were joking about it. I mean, Andrew Haney is your frontline pitcher there. I just don't understand. It's not like they're trying, they're not in like Des Moines, Iowa or Salt Lake City, Utah. I can't really understand why they don't have more success in attracting the kind of pitching that they need to actually be competitive.
There are a lot of owners, and I think Artie Moreno in the past, when he won the World Series in 2002 and had competitive teams, and there are a lot of owners and a lot of general managers that will be very happy to be competitive without having to spend a lot of money. And I think that has a lot to do with it in terms of all of baseball. We understand the economics of baseball. The fan attendance is down, and I just think that they want to be competitive. And if they happen to strike lightning in a bottle, they'll get there. But a frontline starting pitcher playing with the best player in baseball and Mike Trout on your team, and they're only in the playoffs for one time in his 12-year career, it's hard to draw talent over there. And Mike Trout's there for another, I guess, 7 or 8 more years after he signed that contract, and maybe I think 9 or 10 more years after he signed that contract. But look at these numbers for Albert Pujols, Casey. I mean, 32-53, 667 home runs. I think that's 5th in all-time history. 2,100 RBIs. That's Hank Aaron territory, and Hank Aaron led for a long time. 298 batting average. And I'll show you the difference in that in a second. But 298 batting average, 376 on base, and OPS, which is the new sabermetrics deal, 921. That's excellent in terms of any metric you want to go to. So, but here's the difference from the St. Louis years to his Anaheim years. 445 of those home runs came in St. Louis in 11 years. I know age creeps up on everybody, as we joke. Time will always cover the spread, and time is covering the spread with Albert Pujols. 328 in St. Louis, 1,300 RBIs, but look at that OPS. I mean, you're talking obviously Hall of Fame status, 1,000 plus in the OPS. And then you turn it over to the Angels, and then obviously the last 3 years have been tough since he turned 37, 38. You talk about the plantar fasciitis, doesn't run well at all. But 222 home runs, 256 average, 783 RBIs, a 758 OPS, which for mere mortals is a great career. 222 home runs. This is Albert the Machine, though. You got to think that clearly this production has affected him. And I find it funny, ironic, not in a ha-ha way, obviously, that Albert Pujols is being released because Jared Walsh is having a good year when they've got so many other problems on that team. Anthony Rendon hasn't performed since he's come over from Washington. Pitching staff, we've documented, has been terrible. The bullpen has given up leads. I mean, they lost last night again. Ohtani did walk 6 guys, but he struck out 7 in 5 innings. The bullpen gave it up to Tampa Bay again last night, and so therefore they play a 4-game series tonight, and so it'll be very interesting to see how the Angels react to the Pujols release designated for assignment when they play Tampa Bay again tonight. But very interesting, kind of sad. We're all getting older, but that's kind of the way life is here, I guess. So that's big news. Let's go on to other baseball stuff here real quick as we get to the notes. Pujols DFA. John means business. John means the Baltimore Orioles. The only thing that's good to watch in Baltimore these days. He hits the Seattle Mariners 6-0 yesterday. The only base runner that reached was a strikeout wild pitch. Otherwise, it would have been a perfect game. And they were all looking it up. The Orioles announcers were looking it up. Even the Mariners announcers were looking it up. He did reach base. Sam Harrigan did strike out, and he did reach base on the wild pitch. So the pure definition in writing is no runners reach base at all. He got thrown out trying to steal on the next pitch. He did reach on the wild pitch. John Means has been great. He pitched well against the A's 2 games in a row. Beat them twice right during the middle of the A's rolling times there with the 12-game winning streak. He's the guy that shut the A's 12-game winning streak down. Jacob deGrom got hurt, missed his start the other day. I had this conversation. Jacob deGrom is 2-2, Casey. What's his ERA, though? 0.51. 0.51. San Francisco Giants fans are going like, Matt Cain. We saw Matt Cain have that happen. No, you didn't, because Matt Cain got a few runs there. His ERA was never below 1 like it is for Jacob deGrom. Joey Votto breaks his thumb. He'll be out for a little bit. And Tony La Russa has made mistakes, and otherwise they'd have a bigger lead in the Central Division in the American League. Kansas City Royals have been a really good surprise. They may be on the verge of getting swept by the Indians 4 straight at home. They're down 3-0 to Kansas City. I'm sorry, 3-0 to Cleveland at home. And I didn't know this, but I'm not managing a big league club because of this new extra inning rule with a runner at second. Did you know, Casey, I'm going to do the Sports Center here. Did you know that if the pitcher is in the spot of the last out to protect the pitchers, that you can use the batter before as a runner at second base, so they don't have pitchers run bases that they haven't done in 2020 or probably even in 2019. So Liam Hendricks, Tony La Russa did not know the rule or forgot the rule. Liam Hendricks had to run second base in that 0-0 game against the Reds yesterday in extra innings as the runner at second to start the 10th inning. So it's just kind of an interesting scenario that Tony La Russa had a situation with yesterday. So very interesting to see what's going on. But anything in baseball that strikes you real quick before we get to that game itself?
Well, I mean, I can't necessarily fault him 100% for not understanding. I mean, every time you look up, it seems like there's a new wrinkle that we're not familiar with as far as Major League Baseball. I mean, I don't know. Is there staying power to all this stuff? Are we going to have 7-inning doubleheaders forever and keep runners on second base? It just doesn't seem to make much sense to me as far as a fan perspective. I don't know why they decided to make all these changes other than the pandemic last year, but there's no, sensible reason at this point, it doesn't seem, to kind of keep with this stuff. Obviously, it's not going to change this year. And I also noticed that baseball is working with the independent league, putting together some other fun stuff that they're going to work with in that league, and perhaps it'll make its way into the bigs at some point. But I'm not mad at Tony La Russa for that, and I wouldn't necessarily even hold that against him, although you'd think maybe one of his coaches might lean over and say, hey, Skip, things are a little different this year, and you got to pay attention because you got a pretty damn good baseball club with maybe the best pitcher in baseball right now, Rodon, who, isn't it also weird, Vasu, going back to your earlier point, I believe I saw this on SportsCenter last night. This is the earliest we've had 3 no-hitters in a season since like back in the 60s or something. Yes. So pitching is certainly coming into play. Fun fact from Elias I saw, John Means the first pitcher to throw a non-perfect no-hitter with no walks, no hit batters, and no errors. So if you look at that scoreboard in the outfield, it looks mighty clean. And I wonder if he, last night, despite the fact he's patting himself on the back, didn't just say, man, that one got away from me. I could have had a perfect game and been forever. But Jim Palmer and him will probably be, sharing an Arnold Palmer and celebrating this because there's not much else to celebrate when you're in Baltimore. Look, I think we're all being robbed when DeGrom is out. I mean, this guy is amazing. He's the reason why the Mets are, somewhat competitive. And that kind of volleys me into another thought. I want to get your take on this. I mean, parity is king, man. We've got a lot of teams that are either 3 games above, 3 games below, or right at the Mendoza line. So there hasn't been that much separation. So even if you're a fan of a team that's in last place, like the Angels who we referenced, or, say like the Miami Marlins, there's still a lot of wiggle room. The other thing that's been striking me is that the variation in games played. I'm looking up here. You've got the Mets. They've played 25 games. You've got another team in their division, the Phillies, that have played 32. So at some point, you're going to have to figure out strategy-wise how to rest your guys. I'm kind of pleased that we're, 20 minutes into the show. We haven't said COVID yet, so, pardon me for mentioning it. But things are moving along pretty nicely. And the biggest surprise of all for me, as an observer of the NL West who watches a lot of Dodgers and Padres on the app, what are your Giants, your hometown team there, doing at 18-13? Until yesterday, they had the best win percentage in all of Major League Baseball. And I can't quite put my finger on why. They're 10-3 at home, 8-10 away. And I know down there in the Bay Area, it's quite a buzz between the way the Giants and the A's are performing here in the early season.
A's have the best record in baseball coming into today. They have a day game, a 1-0 lead over Toronto Giants. I think hopefully that Tuesday night game 2 of the doubleheader, giving up 6 at the bottom of the 7th, and the doubleheader 7th inning is the 9th inning. The Rockies came back and beat them and then ended up winning yesterday 6-5. Hopefully that doesn't turn the Giants' fortunes around. The best thing that's happened about the Giants, everybody's talking about the starting pitching, but now the bullpen is kind of going through its little up and down phase because nobody really knew who Jake McGee was coming in. He had a great start, and now these guys are getting hit around a little bit. But the starting pitching has been great, but they're still not hitting. They're hitting with power, and they're hitting when everybody's hitting. It's like it's contagious. When they're hitting, they're all hitting. When they're not hitting, they're all not hitting, and that's kind of the way it goes for baseball in general. But I think the biggest thing for the Giants that a lot of people are not talking about is their starting pitching, and their record is being helped by the fact that their defense is outstanding. They've only made 8 errors this year in 32 games. That's very good. You extrapolate that out times. That's only about 40 to 50 errors for the season. If you play that kind of defense, you're going to win games because you're going to save a lot of runs. And if you don't hit, you're going to need to play defense from that standpoint. So it's been very interesting down here for the Giants. The A's, their bullpen gave it up a little bit last night. The bullpen has had some struggles as well, too. I don't know what to make of bullpens this year. Talk about the no hitters and the pitching, Casey. We all know about the Atlantic League, the League of Experimentation, and they're doing all this stuff with there. They're trying to maybe get the pitch clock or the robot umpire or the move the mound back to 66 inches to 61 feet because now there's just too many strikeouts and too much domination from the pitchers. Of course, the last time any change happened on the mound in the pitching was 1968, the year that Bob Gibson had a 1.12 ERA, and they lowered the mound from 12 inches to 10 inches to take away some of the domination the pitchers had. That only one hitter hit over 300 that year, and that was Carl Yastrzemski, and he won the Triple Crown that year. So that's very interesting from that standpoint. But yeah, I don't know what to make of it. A lot of stuff with baseball going on. But as I tell everybody, especially the Giants fans who like to get at me when the Dodgers lose, now that they have 14 losses and probably not going to get to 106 wins now, although everybody thought it was going to get to 120. It's still May 6th. So just like I said on Facebook, everybody just calm down. It'll be all right. It'll be all right, one way or the other. Everybody will go on a 6-game losing streak. It'll be just fine. All right, let's move on to the NBA here a little bit. The NBA, let's see, NBA notes here. We got James Harden says he's not going to be out. He's going to be out until the playoffs. He thinks he's going to come back a little early. I just don't know what they're going to do continuity-wise, Casey, because I just have a feeling that this is going to be a situation where they're going to have to figure out how to play together because I just don't like them defensively. And you can't rely on shooting to bail you out every night because you're going to have off nights shooting. You can play defense every night and you can match up with your guys and you can do all the stuff that you need to do. But I just can't imagine that you're going to win every night just by shooting 55% on 36% three-point shooting, Casey.
You're not. Exactly. You cannot score your way to a title. Yes, you have to score, but you have to play defenses in like at least 5 or 8 minute stretches at some point in the game, and they just don't do that. I mean, they literally play to the level of the opponent. No matter who they're playing, they let them get close, and then they go on a run, and they seem to find a way to score. I'm actually a little baffled looking at the future odds that the Nets are still such a powerful betting favorite. They're basically 2-1. The Lakers are almost up to 4-1. Then you got the Clippers, Bucks, Sixers, and Jazz in the rest of it. And I agree with you. They just don't pass the eye test. I'm looking at the scores in these games. Almost every team they're playing against is getting to at least 115, it seems like, on a night in and night out basis. And at some point, a team that can play lockdown defense for limited stretches, because the NBA has certainly gone away from that. The totals, I mean, look at today's totals if you want an example. But I think if you get Harden back, you can get a little continuity. But what if he doesn't come back till the playoffs? I mean, obviously, Irvin and Durant are next level, and they're great players. And Harris has been good. I mean, they've got a good team. I just don't trust them defensively when things get down to it. And also their depth might be a little bit of an issue. I mean, they list Blake Griffin as both their backup power forward and center. Obviously, the retirement there of Aldridge was something they probably didn't expect. But I just don't know if a roster, Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, Kevin Durant, Jeff Green, and DeAndre Jordan, which is their starting 5 tonight, is going to be good enough to get past the Bucks and the Sixers. And another thing on that, I can't understand why the Philadelphia 76ers aren't getting more love. I mean, right now, 9-1 to win the title. My favorite bet in sports right now, though, is them to win the Eastern Conference. The Sixers are the third choice on the board. I've been talking about this for months. They were at 5-1. Now they're at almost 4-1. The fractional odds are 15-4. If you got an extra $100 burning, through your pocket and you're not going to put it in Dogecoin, throw that on the Philadelphia 76ers and try to get 4-1. Because to me, they feel like the team that is playing the most consistently good basketball. Now, I know Bucks fans might have an issue with that. The Heat are starting to surge a little bit. But this is what's making the NBA so cool this year, Vasu, is we really have no idea who's going to end up in the finals. Because you can't just say it's going to be Lakers-Nets. That would just be stupid to say that, because I don't believe that's going to end up being the matchup.
Our friend Jim Cosmore yesterday was on, and he was talking about how basketball in the top half has been really, really good. The middle of the pack has been very average, but it's been very unwatchable at the bottom because of the differences in scores. We had Indiana beat Oklahoma City by 50 points. Your Kings got beat by 49 one night, and there's just such a disparity that some of it is unwatchable basketball. And the problem that's going to happen with that, and I know this is still a one-off, but I think the problem that's going to happen with that is not only the ticky-tack fouls are being called, but Jim seems to think it's the way it's being coached. But I said I think it's being coached because the rules are set, and you have to coach by the way of the rules. And I think the coaches' hands are tied from that. But also the fact is that he mentioned the New Orleans Pelicans, just to take an example, because I know the NBA wants the Pelicans in the tourney. They tried to get
Sure.
them in last year. They may not make it because they don't play defense, but they are 25th in the NBA in 3-point shooting. You know what they average? You know what the 25th team averages on the number of attempts from threes in the NBA, Casey?
I don't 18. What is it? I don't know.
I would think it was in the teens too because of the number of 25.7 3-point attempts a game, and you're
Wow.
25th in the NBA. So I know the Clippers shoot more than 50% from threes, but the part of me that, and I'm okay with the 3-point shot because that's the game now. But I just think that you have to take twos when you can get twos as well. And when you get to the playoffs, you have to start playing basketball a little bit. And you just can't rely on threes. If you keep relying on threes, you're going to get beat because we just noted, and it's been proven over the years that it's a possession by possession game in the playoffs, and you have to rely on shot making from inside the 3-point line as well as the 3-point line extended, and you've got to play defense on a possession by possession basis. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. All right, let's move on with the NBA here a little bit. The Atlanta Hawks all of a sudden getting a little notice. Trae Young back. They're winning a little bit. They're in 5th place. I'm not sure if they're tied with the Knicks or not, but they're 5th place in the East overall. Big $20,000 bet, according to DraftKings, has come in at 100-1 odds on the Hawks to win the title. $5,000 series of $5,000 bets have also come in. The Knicks have clinched the playoff spot, even though they don't have an X in the paper. I keep doing the magic number thing between them and Washington can't catch them, and they're in 10th. So I think the Knicks are in. I think the papers have just forgotten to do it, or the websites have forgotten to do it. And Atlanta is in 2 in the playoffs. Big city, New York, getting the Knicks in there. It's going to be big for the NBA to do that. I don't know how far they'll go. And then Kyrie Irving gets fined again for not talking to the media. Look, he has a right not to talk to the media, but you have an obligation when you play in the NBA that you have to talk to the media, even if it's for a couple minutes or for 5 minutes or something like that. You don't want to give answers, just go Marshawn Lynch on them.
Yeah,
Whatever
exactly.
you want to do, just do something. But if you want to keep getting fined and make your statement, nobody else is getting hurt in the wallet than you. And the Players Union cannot back you on this because it is your obligation as a face of the team, as a voice of the team, as a voice of the league, that if you want to comment on social issues and comment on everything else, that you have to take the good with the bad. That's what I like about certain guys in professional sports, that they will talk when things go bad, or they will talk when things go good, but you will also find those same guys that will talk when things are bad. And I don't exactly see what's going on bad with the Brooklyn Nets for him not to be able to talk. So thoughts on these extra notes here we got for the NBA, Casey?
Yeah, well, the thing that I don't get is obviously we live in a very tumultuous time between the pandemic and social justice and all the issues that are afoot here in America. And I talk about this often on my show and also with one of my coworkers who does the newscast. Why not look at this as an opportunity to get out there and voice your opinions? I mean, if you're going to just talk basketball and you're Kyrie, they'll lob you enough stop balls that you can talk about X's and O's and shooting and playing defense and in chemistry on the team. But if you want to get out there and talk about, what's wrong with the world, and believe me, there's plenty wrong with the world. You are a prominent athlete in the biggest market in America. Tons of kids have your jerseys. A lot of people respect you and want to hear what you have to say about what's going on. So I look at that as kind of a missed opportunity. I mean, it would be really interesting to just get him on maybe like one of his buddies' podcasts or something to see what he's actually thinking. Doesn't it seem like, Vasu, sometimes these guys open up a little more when they're talking with their friends on these podcasts than they do when they get in front of the media? And as you just said, what do you have to complain about, dude? I mean, you have a team that has gone from literal irrelevancy. Nobody's even talked about the Nets since Jason Kidd was there back in 2002. And now you're right there with the Knicks as far as eyes on you in that big market. So I find that one odd. I mean, I can't say I'm mad at the guy, but it's very, very odd. Now, on your point on the Knicks, gamblers know about the Knicks because guess who's covering at a 64.6% clip, 42, 23, and 1 against the number this year. That is mind-boggling. If you're curious, the only other teams that are even in that realm are Phoenix and Memphis, who are covering at a 61.5% clip. And then maybe a little surprisingly to folks, the Washington Wizards, who can't play any defense whatsoever. Last night, case in point, but they could certainly score with the best of them. 57.6% as far as they're against the spread win percentage. And there's something about those New York Knicks. Now, I am a Kentucky basketball fan. I'm the SEC guy on this show. I like all SEC sports, but to see what La Familia has been able to do in La Big Apple has been nothing short of remarkable. And I don't think James Dolan or any other headliner at the Garden could have possibly seen this coming. And I'm kind of curious. I want to get Charlie's take on this tomorrow. What do you think kind of put this together? I mean, was it the drafting of Toppin, who's been a good off the bench guy? Is it just a new attitude, new coach? The fact that maybe they didn't have as much pressure because they didn't have full fans in the seats, and New York's obviously a pressure cooker for athletes. But the Knicks being in this position is something you could not have sold me on this, Vasu, before the season, that they would be this good.
New coaching with Tom Thibodeau. Their record is really good with them since he's come in. He demands defense. They're playing a lot better defense. They slow the ball down. Their pace is down. And Julius Randle, not getting a lot of MVP talk, has been playing out of his mind. And the fact that they were out of the 10th seed early in the tenure of the season before Thibodeau came in to where they are now in 4th. And I'm putting them in the playoffs, even though there's no X by them in the standings. They are, my math tells me they're in the playoffs at the number 4 seed. And Atlanta as well too. Julius Randle's been the big difference for that team, and the fact that they're playing defense and they've got the pace of play down to a certain amount, like we were talking about molasses last week. This is a team that will play possession by possession, and that's a Thibodeau based game in that regard.
Wouldn't it be kind of a shame too if it ends up being Knicks Hawks in the first round? I don't want those teams playing each other, man. I want those teams to have a chance to advance on.
Well, if it's 4 and 5, I guess they would have to play each other if it's 4 and 5. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I just don't know what's going to happen. All right, last thing before we get a break here, let's get to the NFL here a little bit. A couple of things here. Aaron Rodgers very conflicted on his future, according to his former teammate John Kuhn. Apparently, he's in a tug of war match with the general manager. Wants the general manager out. I don't know. That doesn't seem like Aaron Rodgers to me. To kind of force other people out of his job. I mean, he understood the situation with Brett Favre. According to John Kuhn, he's just kind of thinking about his future right now. He's 38 years old. He should think about his future, but it's very interesting to me. But Aaron Rodgers has a type of personality, and this does not seem like him. This is not the guy that I knew at Cal, interviewed him a couple times at Cal, interviewed him a couple times early in his career when he was not starting, because backup quarterbacks are easy to get quotes from in those days than they are a starting quarterback. So you just have to figure out, and all the money he's raised for Chico in that area up there and keeping small businesses open with his not only with his own charity, but also money he got from Jeopardy as well too. Jeopardy matching that as well too. It's not the Aaron Rodgers, but he does have a prickly personality, and he does play chess a lot when everybody else is playing checkers. You can hear it in the interviews with that wry, and see it on the field with that wry smile. A lot of people don't understand it. Your take, Casey, on Aaron Rodgers, because he's the type of person to stick it to somebody, and if he really wants to stick it to somebody, hell, let him get released and go to the Bears, and he'll stick it to the Packers twice a year, at least for a couple of years while Justin Fields get ready.
Yeah, Justin Fields. By the way, I may be changing my tune on my opinion of Justin Fields. So every day that I read more about that guy, I think you guys might have done some real good getting that guy in your uniform. But Aaron Rodgers is a hard guy to figure out. He's the most boring host on Jeopardy, yet he's the only time I watch because something about it. I know he's just a weird dude.
I thought he was good.
Yeah, and I enjoy that. But the thing is going to battle with your general manager does you no good now post-draft. I understand that he's pissed that they haven't selected a skill position player in 9 drafts to try and help him out on offense, Jordan Love being the only offensive skill position player who's going to be his replacement eventually. I saw Adam Schefter report earlier today that Green Bay is going to sign another quarterback to their practice squad because they've only got 2 right now, and they don't know what the future holds. He understands, man. He's running out of chances. I believe he's, if I'm not mistaken, either 1-4 or 1-5 in NFC championship games. He had his best opportunity since the Super Bowl year last year, hosting Brady and the Bucks, but Tom Brady got the better of him, and I just don't think he sees the improvement around him to think that Green Bay is going to be able to take that extra step. Although, I mean, Vasu, look, both of us watch football like nobody's business. I think looking at their roster and their depth chart, even with what they did in the draft, trying to improve their defense a little bit, there's no reason to think that they're not the favorite in their division and probably one of the 3 or 4 favorites to win the conference. So I don't know why you'd want to come back. The thing is, he said, excuse me, 3 teams he'd want to go to: Raiders, Broncos, or 49ers. Well, the 49ers thing I think has been sorted out, at least for this one season. Jimmy G's there. The Broncos probably don't have enough on offense to really compete for an AFC title. And the Raiders, that's a whole nother story. That's a show in itself. We want to talk about what's going on with that. So it seems to me you'd be better off. I'm not saying shut your mouth, but stop trashing your general manager. The team's not going to fire the guy because you don't like him. That GM could be there years after you're retired. You've probably got 2 or 3 more shots to get one more ring and really cement yourself at that next level, the multi-Super Bowl winning quarterback. And this is the team that gives you the best chance to do so. So I don't see any solution that betters Aaron Rodgers' legacy. In fact, it got so bad, the Milwaukee Brewers minor league team, the Timber Rattlers, they're there in Wisconsin. They showed a commercial of him on the big screen, and he got booed by the fans in the stands. And I never thought in my lifetime I'd see Aaron Rodgers booed in the state of Wisconsin, Vasu.
I never would have thought that. Good knowledge on the Make the Money and Run podcast with Casey and Vasu with Minnesota Rattlers. Now, what is the Wisconsin Rattlers knowledge?
Yeah, Wisconsin Timber Rattlers, the minor
Timber
league
Rattlers.
for the Brewers.
All right, well, Caleb Adams out there from our from our Stables Media Group. She can tell us what a Timber Rattler is.
Yeah.
Living in Wisconsin. All right, Kerryon Johnson. The other news by the Lions. Don't know what. That's not really big news. You can figure that he was going to go anyway, but Detroit having a tough time trying to get themselves together. Let me ask you before we go to break here. We didn't have a chance to talk to you with you being on assignment about what your thoughts were on the NFL draft. Give us your takes on the whole draft if you want. I saw the Cowboys did pretty well in your mind. I saw your post that you thought the Cowboys did pretty well drafting some defensive guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a Cowboys fan. We all have our teams that we support on this program, and I liked it a lot. I mean, would I have liked to have gotten Patrick Surtain or a cornerback with the first pick? Yes. So would Jerry Jones. So would Steven. So would the whole organization. But when you've got a guy like Micah Parsons, who you and I both watched a lot playing at Penn State, I mean, maybe even the best defensive player available in this first round, and they got him at number 12. I'm very pleased about that. I wanted to see him go defense and defensive heavy. Kelvin Joseph, they got Chauncey Golston, some other good players. And then finally they went back and got Josh Ball out of Marshall, who's a decent tackle. At least he looks like he could be. So I'm happy with that. I think the best pick in the first round was not those three quarterbacks. I know that Trevor Lawrence is going to end up being a very good player, but I think for the Falcons to get Kyle Pitts is very good. I'm even hearing rumors that they might want to deal Julio Jones, and who knows what they could get for that. But he seems to me like the biggest can't miss player in this draft. There's never been a tight end with his wingspan. He's basically a wide receiver who's just tall enough and big enough to play on the line. And if they can work on his blocking ability, we're talking the next level Gronk. I mean, basically this guy is a can't miss. The funny thing about listening to the draft analysts, like for example, let me take a Denver Broncos. I'm listening on ESPN radio driving around on draft day. The lady who's hosting is losing her mind about them taking Patrick Surtain instead of a quarterback because she doesn't like the quarterbacks they have on their team. I'm like, have you and she's basically trashing Patrick Surtain. I'm like, do you know who this guy is? Do you know his legacy, his family, how much he's helped Alabama win? You know why Patrick Surtain didn't have a huge highlight reel? Because he's like Deion Sanders. Nobody threw the ball his way because the guy's so damn good at covering up. So I think that overall, this was a fun draft. I liked seeing people together. I like the way that Goodell kind of played with the crowd. And there's a lot of winners and losers. And as you and I have talked about time in and time again, we don't know bleep. See me in 3 years. Then I'll tell you how good the class of 2021 was. We're just figuring out right now as fifth-year options start to get extended on the guys who came out, in 2016. So it takes a little bit of time to figure out who the winners are and the losers are. Like, for example, I'm looking at the NFL.com draft board. They give the Houston Texans a C because they don't like them taking Davis Mills. Well, guess what? They've got a little bit of a problem with their quarterback they have there right now. Luckily, he hasn't been in the news this week, and I don't want to get into that, but we just don't know this early on who's good, who's bad. They give the Jaguars an A- because they got Lawrence and Etienne and keep them together. So, okay, that sounds good on paper, but we don't know if it's going to translate to the pro level. Bottom line here is right now, if we're looking at teams that are capable of getting back to the championship game, which is what everybody wants, there's no reason to think that we couldn't have a rematch of last year's Super Bowl. Kansas City has gotten much better with what they've done, both through trades and in the draft. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all they were doing was basically just putting cherries on top of their cake. Cherry, cherry, cherry. We've already got our whole team back. We can pick whatever the hell we want, and we can work with them and develop them. And I think Kyle Trask has got to be thrilled going from Florida just across the way to Tampa Bay and maybe being the guy that gets tutored by Tom Brady to take over at some point. So I'm in full football mode. We could literally do a football podcast every day, and I'd be fine with that. It's my favorite. It's the king. And I think this year overall was a success. And you and I barely even talked about the 49ers. I wanted to ask you that because I haven't talked to you in a little bit. What's the buzz like there in the Bay as far as making Trey Lance that guy? They had three choices for that guy. Fields, They could have gone Lance. They could have gone Mac Jones. I would say a little surprised that they traded all that. They mortgaged all that to get a guy who went to North Dakota State. I'm not taking a shot because he played in D1 AA, but Justin Fields played in the Big Ten. You know what I mean? That's pretty proven. Mac Jones played in the SEC. They played against NFL talent already. I know Lance looks good on paper, but I'm curious, what's the buzz like there in San Francisco and the surrounding area about that particular pick?
Well, now that the pick's been made and everybody's on board with it because Kyle Shanahan went on and did his press conference about Trey Lance was the guy that he wanted all the time, as opposed to saying, no, we didn't want Trey Lance because Zach Wilson wasn't there. I mean, what are you going to do in your press conference? You made the pick going like, no, we didn't really want Trey Lance here. So it'll be interesting. I realized what I realized is now everybody's got the moniker that's the Trey area now, not the Bay Area. So that's one thing that I've learned about all the Bay Area radio stations jumping on right now. Also, I've learned Kyle Shanahan will never. I had John Malkovich on last week. Kyle Shanahan will probably never admit that probably he and Robert Saleh had the same players in mind because of Saleh being with Shanahan for 5 years. And I think if the Jets did not have Saleh as their coach, that Zach Wilson may have dropped down to number 3, and the Jets may have taken a tight end instead of a quarterback or a defensive player, depending on who the new coach was going to be. But Robert Saleh being with Shanahan knows that Zach Wilson is somebody that Shanahan liked, probably wanted overall. But Kyle Shanahan will never admit it. And Malkovich made the joke to me. He goes, long after I'm gone, when he writes the book, just ask him if they thought about trading number 3 for number 2 like they did a few years ago and got Solomon Thomas, which didn't work out. And the Bears ended up getting Trubisky. So I'll be interested to see how that works out and see if Shanahan ever says 25 or 30 years from now, Kyle, we're talking about that he really wanted Zach Wilson overall to begin with. I don't think he'll admit it, and see how Trey Lance does. It still won't surprise me if Garoppolo gets traded because I thought if they drafted Lance, he seemed like he was all there, and he's a pretty sharp kid that Garoppolo may go during the summer.
By the way, yes, NFL franchises who need a quarterback, take a flyer on this guy. You're not going to pay what the 49ers did to get him out of New England. I wouldn't be surprised either. I think that's a good line of thinking there. It's like, look, you brought Lance in here. You want to give him a chance? Give him a chance. I mean, there's no reason that we should think that rookies are no longer going to be starting. We see it across the NFL. It's a trend. And I feel like if and when Jimmy G is healthy, he is your best quarterback option right now in San Francisco. But they've burned that bridge so hard that I don't know that he has any confidence in this team and this organization believing in him. Maybe he does need a fresh start. There's so many teams, Vasu, that could use a starting quarterback. I mean, that's the story every single year. Every team's trying to find that it guy. There's only about 5 or 6 it guys in the entire NFL. And actually, a couple of those guys, like a Matt Ryan, are mired on teams that haven't been that good. So I think if the 49ers could trade him and get something back, especially building towards the future, that might be the move. Now, with that said, if you get in there and you get Garoppolo under center, this NFC West is going to be so damn competitive. I mean, I can't tell you right now who's going to finish first or last. All 4 teams are very talented, and everybody says the Cardinals had an average draft. I don't care. The Cardinals are good. The Seahawks are good. The Rams probably got better with what they did this offseason. And by the way, all these teams are going to be playing in front of fans, so that's probably going to change the whole feel of it as well. The NFC West is going to be a meat grinder. In fact, when we get into futures betting and all that, I think you and I and Chuck are going to have to discuss maybe looking at under as far as win totals projected for all these teams, because they're going to beat the living hell out of each other.
I think I saw the 49ers early over-under was 10. Well, let me say this about Jimmy Garoppolo, because he sat behind Brady, kind of like what Rodgers did. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's a good team guy. Alex Smith went through the same thing with Kaepernick here, and then also with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. They're just good team guys. Jimmy Garoppolo was on a program last week with his dad. His dad, a longtime Chicago resident, Illinois resident, and he was an electrician for 40 years. And he got on the air, and they were asking him about the attitude. This is an electrician who survived and paid his way for his family and everything like that. You think he's feeling sorry that a team doesn't want you, that you're not accepting life for your $25 million contract? I think I think on TV, I think he made it pretty clear without actually saying it, that he told his son to suck it up. Life changes, and this is the way it goes. And as long as you're employed with that team, you have to be the best teammate you can. And I believe Jimmy Garoppolo, in his mind of mind, is very sensible, very level-headed guy, to the point where he's going to welcome Trey Lance in and welcome him in to maybe take his job sometime either this year or next year. The last rookie quarterback to take a team to a championship game, according to my research, I could be wrong, but the last one to go to a championship game was Joe Flacco, and that was 12 years ago, 13 years ago now. So it's not easy for a rookie quarterback to come in and take him to the playoffs or take him to the promised land. So if they think that Trey Lance is going to take him to the Super Bowl, the odds are very much against him. Not saying that it can't happen, but it hasn't happened in 13 years. So we just take that into account before everybody just starts jumping off Jimmy G. And like I was talking with the a coach who's watched 1,000 times more film than me, you, and anybody else watching us combined. By the way, thanks for watching us, by the way, but still, they haven't watched as much film. The point is that they've got to learn how to handle and maneuver, how to deal with these quarterbacks, and how to deal with Trey Lance. It's just going to be an interesting way to blend both quarterbacks in and get that through the training camp. See how OTAs go. If he relishes OTAs and they do well the early part of training camp, who knows? Garoppolo may be gone at that point, but I just can't see it happening this year. It wasn't going to happen if Mac Jones came in either, Casey.
One other thing on this, I'm looking at the Vegas Insider odds to win the NFC West, not win totals, but to win the actual division. Very, very tight. Rams plus 175, 7-4 if you're looking at fractional odds. 49ers 2-1. Seahawks just shy of 3-1, and then the Cardinals at 6-1. That's not much separation, especially if you look at other divisions where, for example, a Tampa Bay is a big favorite, a Green Bay is a big favorite, rightly so. Kansas City is a big favorite. So the NFC West is going to be very intriguing, and they're certainly going to have something to say as far as Super Bowl contenders. And there's no reason to think that the 49ers, that they can play like they did 2 years ago, aren't going to be one of those teams that's right there in the shuffle. The thing about it is, we have no reason to doubt John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan's decision-making thus far. If they weren't so injured last year, they probably would have been a much better team. They're only 2 years removed from a Super Bowl. And the other thing they've done is they've done a good job of kind of keeping their roster intact, especially the special guys that you need, a la Kittle. They've done a great job developing their running backs. And I'm pouring all this praise on this franchise, but, I live here in Northern California. I'm not a 49er fan by any means, but I respect what they've done. And I feel like they've really got kind of a magic formula going right now. So if you think Trey Lance is the guy that's going to make you better, ride with Trey Lance. Your defense is still going to be ferocious. You've got a ton of backs in your backfield to kind of ease the burden of making him have all these reads and run all over the field. Do what you did last year. Run the ball quite a bit. Free up those passing lanes. Hit those wide receivers. I think Ayuk is going to do nothing but develop better. And the sky's the limit, really, for this team. I'm almost surprised that the Rams are the number one choice, because with a new quarterback and a new system comes new terminology and new time to get acclimated to that. Also, the fact they're playing in a stadium they've never even been in with fans before. So who knows how they're going to react to that. And I can't wait, by the way, to get down there to SoFi. That thing looks like just the crown jewel of Southern California venues. But the NFC West is going to be very watchable this year, and they're probably going to have something to say before the Super Bowl shuffle is all worked out.
No doubt about it. Vasu, Vaddiparty, Case of Freelove. We're here Monday, Thursday, Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. Facebook and YouTube. And if you missed any live programming, download, subscribe anywhere. Let me give some baseball scores here. We'll take a break, and then we'll come back and talk the NBA. Not a lot of baseball left today. Only 2 games left. So I'll give you the update on the scores here. Tigers over the Red Sox in the bottom of the 8th, 9-8. Red Sox looking for a sweep. Mets 4-1, bottom of the 9th over the Cardinals. Indians looking for their first 4-game sweep in years at Kansas City. Have a 4-0 lead in the bottom of the 8th inning. The A's have come back from a 3-1 deficit. They're up 4-3 in the 4th. The Braves have just started against the Nationals. They're in the 4th inning in Washington with a 1-0 lead. And some of the finals, the Astros avoid a sweep, 7-4 over the Yankees. The Phillies get a 4-game sweep over the Brewers. When everybody was trashing the Phillies a week ago, they beat the Brewers 2-0. Zach Wheeler, 118 pitches, complete game shutout for Zach. And then the Rangers come back on the Twins and beat them in extras 4-3 in 10 innings. All right, we'll have a lot of the NBA to talk about. We get all the odds. We'll make some picks. That's what everybody's here for. Make the Money and Run podcast for Thursday. Happy birthday, Willie Mays. We'll be back in 30. Welcome back, everybody. Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu, Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove for Thursday, May 6th. Charlie on assignment. He'll be back with us tomorrow when we preview a lot of the weekend's baseball. And we just got done with the NFL draft. Casey giving his picks out. Everybody's all excited about the draft picks. Like I say, after every day of baseball, with everybody getting on the Facebook pages and each day. Hey, it's May 6th. Calm down, everybody. We got a few months till the NFL. So we'll just go from there. But a lot of baseball going on. We're here Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, as we said. Let's go. We got about 15 minutes left, and we'll give you picks at the end like we do. But let's hit the NBA today. So interesting games today. Chicago in 11th spot. They're playing every game as a playoff game for them at Charlotte, -4. Brooklyn's 3.5 at Dallas. Coase made the point yesterday. I didn't realize Luka Doncic is 1 tee away from being suspended. I didn't realize he had 15 tees, but there is a lot of complaining coming out of that 21-year-old kid from Dallas. Toronto, Washington, probably the best game of the night. Toronto, Washington fighting out. Toronto on 11th, Washington 10th, 2.5-point favorite, 237.5. That's a lot lower than what the Washington totals have been the last few games. Memphis 9.5 at Detroit. They've really slipped. Atlanta, we talked about the bets that have been made to win the title. There's 6 at Indiana. And boy, the Pacers have really slipped. But 240 the total there. Golden State should have beat New Orleans twice this week. They blew the second game back-to-back. 14.5 points is the line. 226.5. OKC can't score. We know last Saturday they got beat by 52 by that Indiana team. And then maybe I don't even know if it's the game of the night. I say Toronto, Washington's the game of the night, and this is coming from a Lakers fan. No LeBron tonight. 8.5 for the Clippers at home. Well, the Lakers are at home too, but 8.5 for the Clippers. 211 is the total for the Clippers and the Lakers. What grabs your eye, Casey, in terms of the NBA schedule tonight?
Well, I mean, the Lakers are. It's fun to watch what's happening. I mean, if you're not a fan of the team, you're enjoying it because they were supposed to be the runaway favorite, and you're always just one injury away. And a guy like LeBron is irreplaceable. I mean, say what you will about his off-court performance lately. On the court, he's the man. And if you've got him and Anthony Davis healthy, you're the favorite to be the best team in the Western Conference. Now, the Clippers hear that all the time being in Los Angeles, and they've done nothing but win a bunch of games. I mean, they're 25-9 at home, Vasu. That's a damn good winning percentage. Kawhi Leonard's found his groove. I think that the 8.5 is probably a good number there because the Lakers do play a little inconsistent, shall we say, when they don't have their leader there. And the thing that's troubling about that, as far as the playoff push, he's in for a game, kind of doesn't like the way it feels. He's out for a game. I'm wondering, do you maybe shut it down for just a week and then give him one more, because there's 2 weeks left of the season, right? In the regular season. Do you shut him down for a week, kind of play him limited minutes in that next week? The problem with that is, and he's openly complained about this, the Lakers are in the 6 hole, 37-28. Then the Blazers are 37-29 there in the 7th spot. So if the Lakers drop down one more spot, then they get into that play-in tournament. They don't want it. It's funny. The teams that are right there in danger of falling down, the Mavericks and the Lakers, are the two most vocal about hating the play-in tournament and kind of bashing Adam Silver for putting it together. From a fan perspective, I love it, and I think it's going to be very entertaining. Now, I will have a play on this Golden State Oklahoma City game because the Thunder have left their season somewhere else. They're done playing basketball for the year. Last time those two got together, it was 147-109. This will be their second meeting this year. And Steph Curry, I mean, if you have eyeballs, you know what Steph Curry's doing lately. I don't have to tell you how well the guy's been playing. Hawks Pacers would have been more intriguing if Indiana hadn't fallen off as much of late. I think the second you and I get done with this podcast, I'm going to fire up the old Google machine and try and figure out who that maniac is that bet the Hawks to win the NBA championship to win $100,000. Quite a bold bet there, sir. And then you've got another game I'll have a play on in a moment. It's a good position, Grizzlies Pistons, because Detroit is in tank mode. I mean, you can tell if you just look at their starting roster night to night, they've got different guys going in there. They're trying to get their young players some minutes because at 19 and 47, they're not going anywhere but straight to the NBA draft lottery. Contrast that with the Grizzlies, who are fighting their way towards the playoffs in the 8th seed right now. It looks like they're going to get in. I mean, I'm just going to say it. They're getting in. And that's one that I think Memphis is going to be feeling pretty good about. And then, of course, you said it. Wizards Raptors might be the game of the night. Throw the records out. Washington is easily the most entertaining. They're like watching the damn Harlem Globetrotters lately when you get out there. I mean, Russell Westbrook, the thing I hate about people that don't like Russell Westbrook is, well, what has he done as far as leading his team and winning in this and that? I'm like, look, this guy is absolutely amazing. I mean, 21.9 points per game, 11 boards per game, 11 assists per game, averaging a triple-double. He has 179 in his career. There's nobody even close to that. Nobody that's going to get close to that unless Luka Doncic is able to do so in years to come. So as a fan of basketball, I want to see the Wizards win and get into the playoffs and have to play against a team like a Philadelphia or a Milwaukee if they're able to get into the first round. I think that'd be good for the game. But in tonight's matchup, it's one of those ones that makes you a little leery as a gambler. I think when we came on the air, Toronto was as high as 2.5. Now the line's been bet down to 1.5 for the Raptors being favored, probably because they're at home and because Washington doesn't play any defense. But I think the Wizards are going to be good enough to creep their way at least into the play-in round, and that is because of Mr. Russell Westbrook, who I love. I'm a fan. I love Russ. Brody, get it on. I only follow a couple guys on social media that play in the NBA, and Russell's been one of them since he came out of UCLA. Big fan.
Well, my takes in the NBA, I said I'll be interested in the Lakers-Clippers game, obviously, tonight. Bulls are an interesting story. They're getting Zach LaVine back. I think that probably helped the point spread off Charlotte. Charlotte's had a tough time. The 7 to 10 seeds, depending on how hot they are, they're playing in playoff mode. These are playoff games for them to stay in. It's not like the top 4, top 5 teams that are kind of cruising towards the end of the regular season here, waiting for the playoffs to start. And I think they can come back to bite some of these teams. Look at the number 1 and number 2 seeds that have lost in the past years. Over the years, because they kind of went into cruise mode and didn't take it seriously going in. These are still pro players. You still have to respect them for what they are. What Washington has done the last month, and I mentioned it with a number of people, including us here on the show, has been nothing short of amazing. By the way, Bradley Beal from St. Louis said, "Bring Albert Pujols home back to the Cardinals." So obviously, he's a Cardinals fan growing up in St. Louis. But what they've done, if they end up in 10th or 9th and can end up getting in that 8th seed or 7th seed, they're going to be a problem for the Philadelphia 76ers, who sometimes go in shooting slumps. You don't know what's going to happen with the Nets, if they shoot well or not. And they certainly can't play defense against a team like Washington. There's no way that they'll be able to keep up with them. They can't defend it as it is now to begin with. And then you talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. It depends on what night it is. The Bucks are playing well or not well, because they're still only a game and a half, 2 games back, if memory serves me right, of the top spot after sweeping the Nets these last 2 games. Hey, by the way, do you know this? I forgot to ask Coz this. Did you ever notice that they're doing the baseball type series, right, for basketball this year, where they're having 2 straight games in one arena, like the Nets and Bucks did this year? Do you know offhand if they're using the same officials in back-to-back games? Because that's a very interesting proposition. And I forgot to ask Coz that yesterday because he would know. I'll look it up for tomorrow's show, because the Warriors and Pelicans just did it on Monday and Tuesday, and then the Bucks and Nets did it. So obviously, I put it out on the air to make me look like an idiot, but I guess I could do research before throwing that out as info to our fan base. But as far as the NBA goes, the last 6 games, this 6 to 10 slot in both leagues both conferences are going to be phenomenal. And I think with them taking it in playoff mode, like the Warriors are a 500 team. They should have had that second game. You can't lose games like that when you have a lead. I know that they've got Curry and he's an MVP candidate, but you're a 500 team for a reason, because you don't win games that you should win. And I know the NBA wants the Pelicans in there and all that, but I just don't see him coming in. I think maybe that's Stan Van Gundy's fault, that he just doesn't coach defense. And even a lot of other people have said, and not just us, but a lot of other people have said that New Orleans doesn't have a veteran presence on that team. I know they have Bledsoe on that team. I forget. Yeah, Bledsoe's on that team, but I don't really consider him a veteran presence in terms of really leading a team. I don't think they have a leader on that team, and I think that hurts them come down the stretch. And by the way they're playing defense, you can see that they're just having a rough time. They're just having a rough time right now. All right, that's the NBA for right now. Let's move on to baseball. We've only got 2 games to talk about in baseball. I gave you the scores of the other 2 games, so let me switch this up here a little bit. Miami Marlins are playing well. The Miami Marlins, here's an interesting known fact, and you probably know this because you look at the stat more than anybody. It doesn't really matter to baseball people, but to wagers it does. They're in last place in the NL East, but you see what the difference of every other team in the NL East is from a Marlins that is higher than them? You see it? Exactly. Very good. Casey watches that stat left and right. If he said someone else, I'd have been totally disappointed. We'd have to rethink the show here, because the Miami Marlins are +10 in run differential, yet they're in last place in the NL East, which says a lot about the pandemic, which says a lot about Jacob deGrom's starts, too. The Mets are winning today 4-1, but the fact is that it's a weak division, and I just find it very funny. And they've got Arizona coming in. Arizona, by the way, if anybody hasn't noticed, is only 2 games back in the National League West. Colorado got 2 out of 3 from the Giants, and they're 3.5 or 4 back in the West right now. And the Dodgers are struggling. They're only 4-13 in their last 17 right now, and they're having problems, and they just got beat up by the Cubs. So it's going to be interesting to see. But tonight's games, Madison Bumgarner all of a sudden looks like Madison Bumgarner from 3 years ago. 3 straight starts, including the notable achievement, not a no-hitter by baseball, but a notable achievement. And he's a $1.22 underdog. And then Andrew Heaney, there's that name again. The Tampa Bay Rays coming in. They played well. I think they won 4 in a row or 5 in a row. they've got Colin McHugh, former Astro, going up tonight at 140. That seems kind of high, and Pujols not there. You don't know what kind of reaction the Angels are going to have tonight with the Pujols departure today, and 140 on Casey's favorite pitcher, Andrew Heaney, tonight to go up against Colin McHugh. I kind of like that. I might have to add Tampa Bay to my pick here. Casey, what do you think about the 2 games left tonight?
Yeah, it's a hard one to figure why Heaney would be minus $1.40. I mean, you just talked about it. The Rays are streaking upward, and the Angels are trending downward. I'm not buying this dip, as they say in the investor world. I would go against the Halos right now. They're only 6-7 at home. You mentioned who knows how they're going to play without Pujols, and the Rays are 10-5 away from home. I mean, right. Tampa gets less coverage than any other team in Major League Baseball, but I think they might be a live one tonight. Probably going to be a game that scores a little bit. So far, they've played 3 games this year. There's been 2 overs and 1 under in those 3 contests. So I think they're going to hit it around a little bit tonight near the Magic Kingdom, maybe inspired by, well, I don't know if Disney's doing fireworks yet or not with the pandemic regulations. But anyway, yeah, those are watchable ones. Shall we get to the picks, my friend?
Yeah, 1 second. I just want to bring up one other thing here real quick, just because we're getting close to playoffs as well, too. I just want everybody to know, we're not going to talk about any other games, but all the hockey lines are all in the 200s and 300s now because it's like basketball. There's some unwatchable hockey in the NHL. And I didn't put up the goal lines, but if you're looking at hockey and you're a hockey bettor, some of these lines, unless you absolutely know the favorites here, like Pittsburgh being 350 or not, look at the goal lines at -1.5, because if you're laying 285, you're Edmonton. You should start looking at the goal lines because you're going to get good plus odds, or you're going to get close to even odds on there. And these grand salamis are pretty good based on the number of goals that are being scored in the NHL right now. I just wanted to throw that out because we're going to hit the NHL playoffs here, and we'll talk about maybe about 10 more seconds with Casey on when the playoffs get, but we don't talk a lot about hockey during the period.
Go Knights, go.
Go Knights, go. Yeah, there we go. And I got my Blackhawks. He's struggling right now, but we're going to get the picks right now as we continue to make the Money and Run podcast with Vasu and Casey. Casey's got his picks. Go.
Yeah, Pistons and Grizzlies. I'm going to ride that under 222.5. It's the lowest total on the board, and for good reason. One, as I said earlier, Detroit is resting a lot of their guys, and they're not scoring with very great offensive efficiency. And 2, Memphis's defensive efficiency has been on point as of late. They're a team that has something to play for. They need to continue compiling wins, and I think that they are a team that's getting much better on defense. I will lay the big number with Golden State -14.5. Now, if we recorded the show an hour ago, I could have got them at 13.5, but that's the way the cookie crumbles in Las Vegas. Look, they beat this team 147-109 last time they played. Vasu already mentioned how terribly the Thunder have been blown out as of recent weeks, and they've got nothing to play for. So I think Steph goes off, probably hits 10 threes as he does, and I think the Warriors win this one comfortably, upwards of a 20-point win margin there, as they've still got a lot to play for as the shuffle keeps going. Kudos to Adam Silver. You've done a great job keeping us engaged here in the last couple of weeks.
By the way, the Warriors want to stay in the 7th spot too, because they'll get the advantage being the 7th spot, as will the team in the 9th spot. Well, all right, my picks right now, there are not too many games in baseball, but I'm going to go with Madison Bumgarner. He's won me a lot of money in the past, and you just don't get Bumgarner plus 122. And I know he hasn't been great the last couple of years, but I think in Miami doesn't score a lot of runs, and they have a tough time with Bumgarner, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the Wizards. I'm going to buy the half point. I'm going to get them to 3 because I think they can score. Toronto has been kind of up and down. I know that they beat the Lakers and lost to the Clippers in LA, but they're coming all the way back to Florida. It might take a toll on them. Washington +3, buying the half. The Lakers +8.5 tonight, mostly because I'm a Lakers fan. Also, I think even without LeBron James, they're starting to get their bench in the groove a little bit, and it'll be interesting to test to see what they do against the Clippers if everybody expects them to be in the mode that they are. All right, the last 30 seconds here. Let me get some updates here. The Red Sox have come back 12-9. The Indians 4-0, bottom of the 9th. The Blue Jays have gone back ahead 5-4, and the Braves up 3-0 on Washington in the bottom of the 4th. Tomorrow, join us at 4:15 Eastern. Casey Freelove, Charlie O, myself, 1:15 on the West Coast. Facebook Live, YouTube channels, everywhere that you get us live. If you miss it, you can download us anywhere you get your podcasts, on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, everywhere you go. All right, for Casey Freelove, Charlie O on assignment, I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. Have a great afternoon. Good luck, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.